welcome back to the PKF. I'm your host Preston. Today we're going to be talking about the Ford Bronco Wildtrak two-door with the HOSS 3.0 suspension system. We're going to do a little walk around of the vehicle for you and show you some of our favorite features.
Alright, so as Preston was saying, this is my vehicle that I spec'd and ordered. It was back in January. Then I added the HOSS 3.0 option as soon as it became available. I believe it was around March that was announced, and then my official build date was early October, so now it's been about 3 weeks owning it. Incredibly happy that suspension came out, because I think that's really made a huge difference in terms of the ride quality for this vehicle. And one of the quirks that comes when you add the HOSS 3.0 suspension system is the Wildtrak logo actually gets this orange little extra on the mountains here, and then it's a little more emphasized on the outline of the Wildtrak logo itself. So if you see one in the wild and it only has gray here, you know it doesn't have the HOSS 3.0 suspension system. Of course, the more obvious way to check to see if the vehicle has the HOSS 3.0 suspension system is to peek down here and to see the Fox internal bypass shocks. And in addition to that, it comes with the steering rack from the Bronco Raptor and full steel bash plates for the vehicle. And as far as other options on this Wildtrak, I went ahead and added the modular steel front bumper and then the optional bull bar as well, which I think just looks really cool and adds a little bit of detail that not everyone has. And one other option I added to the exterior was the Wildtrak body side graphic here. You can see it's in matte black, so it provides a bit of a contrast to the gloss black or metallic black paint that is shadow black. And as far as aftermarket options go, I just went ahead and added mud flaps just because it's very hard to keep this black color clean, so it just prevents some of the road spray and potential chipping from rocks on the paint. And then if you can see here, there's actually an unfinished section. It's painted over, but it's left with some bolt holes there. And unless you option the side steps from factory on the Wildtrak, it's very exposed. So in order to make that look a little more complete and add a bit of functionality, I went ahead and ordered the rock rails from the parts department. I had them put on the same day at home. And I just think it makes it look very finished because it's the same color as the fenders here and the same color as the front bumper. And moving on to the interior, I went ahead and spec'd the cloth seats. I thought the digital camo here was actually pretty cool. And, you know, we had leather on our Outer Banks model, and I found that it wasn't really that great a quality. And after about 8,000 miles, it was showing significant wear and tear in terms of creases and indents. So I figured I'd just order the cloth, see how I liked it, and I could always go aftermarket for leather if I felt it was missing. But so far, I really enjoy it. I think it's still a pretty premium look on the inside of this vehicle, and I don't have any complaints about it. And one option that I thought that was completely necessary was the high package. It creates the full 12-inch screen that fills this gap, whereas if you don't opt for it, it leaves a couple-inch gap here and a couple-inch gap here, and really all you see is just this small amount. So it's pretty cool that you can still use CarPlay, use Waze, and you can see some of your off-road information and fuel economy and other things like that simultaneously, and your music as well. And along with the high package, you also get the 360 in front camera, which has just been fantastic. And you can go ahead and activate that anytime you're driving slow enough or in park, and it'll pop up here. This is your front camera on the left. It's not being intruded on by the bull bar, which is nice. 360 camera is pretty cool. And you can also switch and do a couple angles, so you're only looking at the front, and you have sort of a side view here and front view. And of course, when you switch it into reverse, you'll get the reverse camera there as well. One feature that's unique to the Wildtrak is the Baja mode. And what you can do is you can go ahead and switch it here. You just turn it over a few times. It's all the way on the right. And when you go ahead and add Baja mode, it'll switch into 4 high, and then it'll keep your forward camera up even at any speed. So normally if you don't have it in Baja mode and you go and click this front camera, it won't allow you to. It'll say for your safety you can't look at it, but when you're in Baja mode and it's for off-road use only, you can go ahead and look at that front camera at any time.
talking all things Bronco. As you can see, I'm here with my brother Avery. We're sat in his new 2022 Ford Bronco Wildtrak. This is a two-door. We're going to kind of take you for a short drive here, talk about the ins and outs of the Bronco, trim levels, etc., pricing, and what this thing's been like to drive over the past, what, 3 weeks you've had it now?
3 weeks now.
To start off, I guess, what made you choose a Bronco? Talk a little bit about, I guess, the Wildtrak and why you went with this particular trim, and just take it away, dude. Say whatever you want.
Well, I think it dates back to kind of our first car. I know my first car was a hand-me-down Jeep Wrangler two-door Sport from you, so we've always bought these sort of off-road oriented 4x4s for many years, and we've always had a Wrangler in the garage. And there's just been some complaints we've had with them in terms of the stock vehicles that roll off the line, in terms of road comfort, steering, just some creature comforts and things that you'd come to expect at this point in time in automotive history. And once the Bronco started rolling out and we saw that they were addressing a lot of those things that we used to complain about, it became a vehicle that was certainly on my radar. And I was thinking I'd want one that wasn't exactly bare bones. We were looking at the trim levels, and initially a lot of people didn't think the Wildtrak made sense because it was basically just a Badlands with a little less capability. But now that they've come out with the HOSS 3.0 suspension system with the Fox internal bypass shocks that was originally supposed to be on the 2021, which was
supply shortage problems, right?
That would have differentiated it from the Badlands initially, but that became an option in late 2022, and now it's going to be standard on a 23, and I luckily added that right towards the end, a few months into my build, which I ordered in January. So I'm really glad that option came, because I felt like I would have been missing out with the model year now switching over.
Right, and that's above and beyond the Sasquatch, which gives you the 35-inch tires, a little bit beefier suspension, and sort of the widened fender flares and stuff. So there are a lot of different trim levels and variations that you can get with the Bronco. Of course, you have the base black diamond. You can tell me if I'm forgetting any. Outer Banks. There's the Badlands, which is sort of the rock crawling oriented Bronco, right? And then there's the Wildtrak, which is supposedly the high-speed off-roading variant. And so that is this particular vehicle. There's a four-door right there, actually, race red. And on top of the Wildtrak trim, you have that HOSS suspension he was talking about.
Yeah, and with that package, it comes with the steering rack from the Bronco Raptor, actually. And so a lot of people have called this sort of like the baby Raptor. Obviously, you're missing the wheelbase and the bit of wideness of the chassis and frame.
Well, this is the closest thing you can get to, because I know a lot of the, I guess they're even Bronco purists. They have really, I mean, the thing in the 90s was basically an F-250, right? Or an F-150 with an SUV frame. But a lot of people wanted the Bronco Raptor to be the two-door. So this is pretty much the closest that you can get, I guess, to that particular package. Right? With the 2.7 and the HOSS and so on.
I'd say so.
All right, so you've had this thing for, what, about 3 weeks now? You said? So what are your first impressions of driving it? What do you like? What do you not like? Things that are better than the Wrangler, because that's the obvious comparison that we talked about.
Yeah, so certainly steering is a lot better, and as I was alluding to originally, the ride suspension-wise is fantastic. We actually ended up, you didn't do a video on it, but we had bought an Outer Banks four-door with the Sasquatch, and it also had a soft top, because someone backed out of their build, and we really wanted to get in a Bronco while we still waited for mine, which was 10 months, and we had it for a while, drove it around, and although it was great, we found that the wind noise was pretty unbearable from the soft top, and the ride quality, even though it felt better than the stock Wrangler with the Sasquatch package did, there was still a little bit of bouncing around and some harsher bumps. And now that I'm in this two-door, even though it has a shorter frame and it's not the four-door length, I feel that with the HOSS 3.0 suspension, it's actually much more comfortable than a Sasquatch four-door. So if someone's looking for the best riding non-Raptor Bronco, I'd say it would probably be the four-door Wildtrak with the HOSS 3.0, then followed by the two-door with HOSS 3.0, and then all the other trims, four and two-door, with the Sasquatch package.
Despite the fact that it's called the high-speed off-road suspension system, like I said, it is night and day compared to the regular Sasquatch. In my opinion, I've driven it a little bit. some miles on it, and I think it has very good on-road manners. I could, surmise to think what it's like doing some high-speed desert running and things like that.
Yeah, and
I know that it's is it an extra reservoir, kind of like the AEV?
They say it's an internal bypass shock,
so it's just tuned a little bit differently. And it is much noticeably different. The four-door Outer Banks driving along was pretty compliant. It was noticeable in the back seat. You kind of jolted around and stuff, and you do in this to some degree, but the front shocks are really compliant. One of the things that's actually pretty surprising too with this particular package, the road noise is not that bad.
No, even with mud terrains.
Right, the 35-inch tires, I think compared to the direct competitor to this would be a Rubicon Extreme was it the Extreme Recon package is the 35-inch?
Yeah, but I don't even think they offer that on the two-door right now.
That's true. You can only get the four-door in that, but I guess that would be the comparable package that you would get, correct? And this is, I do think that it is a much better vehicle stock. We're lucky enough to have the 392 with the AEV and all those additional add-ons and stuff, but I think that out of the box from the factory, I think that Ford definitely nailed it, and it's, I would say, a level, if not 2 levels above the Wrangler.
Yeah, and this is coming from people who've had 7 Jeep Wranglers of all trims and levels over the years, and it's obvious that they really paid attention to what people complained about.
No, it's right. It's no secret that they obviously developed this vehicle with the Wrangler in the crosshairs. I know that I've been told specifically by a lot of some of my engineer friends and stuff that they bought up Wranglers to develop this Bronco, and like Avery was talking about earlier, they specifically looked at multiple variables like the steering, the chassis dynamics, and the roll, and it is much better, much more comprehensive, and I think a better vehicle from the factory.
I feel more comfortable inside too with this being the Ranger truck chassis. Right. The Wrangler, even though it's long, it is quite thin, and
this is wider for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of road presence too, and you can feel the way it does take up quite a bit of the lane. Yeah, how's it feel around the corner? There's a little bit of body roll. It's not bad though. I like it. The two-door is much more, I think, athletic than the four-door. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but this trim with this suspension setup and stuff is a much more sporty Bronco, and I think you have a lot more driver-inspired confidence going around corners and stuff with it. It's funny, I know it kind of looks like a wedge or a door stopper, but it's pretty impressive actually. I'd say the Defender is probably a little bit better than this in terms of high-speed dynamics and stuff, but
once again, your base Wrangler starts at the top of the trim Bronco price. The base Defender starts at the top of the trim Bronco pricing. I think you can't get a Defender. The Defender has 0 options. It'd be 55, and then that's about what the Wildtrak starts.
Yeah, so talk about I guess we can talk a little bit about the pricing and sort of the market for these. I think everybody sort of knows about we'll get into the market in a second, but there's a very wide spread when you're looking to purchase a Bronco, which is, I guess we'll just start off. Don't even talk about the over sticker and all that craziness going on, but a base Bronco two-door starts at what, 28,000, something like that, even less. And the Wildtrak two-door is what, 50?
No, now that the HOSS 3.0 is included on all models, I believe it starts at about 52.
Okay, well, I mean, everything in the industry with supply chain, inflation, everything's being driven up quite a bit, but would you say this is a pretty good value, I would say, for 52?
It feels like it.
I think so. The comparable Wrangler, we keep going back to that, would be 60s, right? Because like you said, the Extreme Recon, you have to get the four-door. To have the 35s from the factory, the better suspension, etc., you'd be in the 60s, which is outrageous. And then something like a 4xe, you're like 75,000. 392 is a whole different animal. Those start at 84 now. I think they went up a few thousand MSRP-wise, but I do think that the Wildtrak two-door is your best bet if you're looking for something that is exciting both on and off road and has that performance you're looking for. And the 2.7 is no slouch. This is a nice engine in this thing. It has a lot of torque. I think it's what, 410, 420. I think it's rated at, and then 330 horsepower, 410-ish torque. Might be a little bit more actually, but you can really feel it. It pulls off the line pretty nicely. So what do you think about it in terms of, I guess, a place to be, interior environment, things like that? Do you think it has the right amount of features for the price, 50-ish, low 50s?
Yeah, there's some things that I find that I'm missing, like a heated steering wheel, but I didn't think that was worth upgrading to the luxury package for. I think the one complaint I have about Ford is that they like to build everything in packages, and they leave key items in these packages, so that if you want something that should only be, you know, $150, $200, like a heated steering wheel, you end up having to pay $3,000.
Well, that's the American way. That's what we joked about with my TRX too. I had the level 1 TRX. To get the cooled seats, you had to get the level 2 and to put your sticker price up $10,000 to get cooled seats, which is crazy. And Ford is notorious for doing that kind of stuff, but it is cool. It does remind me, it's sort of Defender-esque in here, because you have heated seats and things, and I think the seats kind of hug you pretty nicely, but it is the nice, I think, combination of utility and a little bit of luxury. It's less luxurious than the Land Rover, obviously, because doesn't have the, you know, Windsor leather and all the kind of creature comforts and stuff.
My only other complaint would be that on all two-door models, and you can't option this at all, is that there are no power seats. So it is kind of a pain to adjust, and if you're ever putting anyone in the back, or if you just want to throw some bags in the back to move the seat around. But other than that, I really don't have any other complaints. Just the price locking of certain features and packages, and then the lack of power seats. But other than that, I picked the high package to get the 360 in front camera and the big screen, and that's fantastic. I think it's been awesome parking both at home or if we're going out to eat or going to a store or something.
That camera's pretty cool.
Into parallel too. Obviously, it's easy with this wheelbase, but that just makes it even easier.
Yep.
I didn't find that the front camera was blocked by the bull bar at all, so they did a good job integrating that properly.
All right, so you more so than me, you kind of eyed the market like the hawk on the Broncos. Like, what do you have to say to people that are looking to get one of these? What is their best bet? Strategies, tips, etc.
Well, if you get one like this, don't drive it, because it'll make you want to keep it no matter what. If you're looking to flip it, don't buy it, because there was a very small part of me that wanted to bring a trailer when I was looking at some of the values and seeing what some of the non-HOSS 3.0 versus HOSS 3.0s were going, and it seemed like, you know, I could probably be in the mid-70s if it had gone up for auction, and I paid, my sticker was 56 before the AZ plan, so about 52. So I could have, you know, netted 50% of the car price almost.
Yeah, well, it's no secret that the car market in general, I talk about this in all my recent videos, has been absolutely insane. I would say that the Ford Bronco, probably in comparison to everything else in the market, has been the craziest, if not the most crazy vehicle in terms of, I guess, a normal pedestrian vehicle where the market's
if you want to compare production numbers to the
Q63 is another crazy market. That's a whole nother ball game with that. Those are come down.
Yeah, but this is a mass-produced vehicle, off of a
it's probably
very large assembly line. Unlike the G, which they make very few of, and they're all V8s, and they're kind of limited with the amount of numbers that they can make.
And it's probably only a matter of time before the market comes crashing down. Who knows? You know, it's like 08 again, but with inflation and everything else. But I mean, part shortages and logistics and shipping and stuff is not really getting any better. You know, we could get political, but they don't make the chips in the United States. When you keep relying on Taiwan and things like that to make your chips, you're not going to be making your cars any faster. But I'm not going to go into a political lecture, but at least right now, these are pretty stagnant in the market, trading for what, $10,000 to $15,000 over sticker, most of them.
Yeah, if you're getting a Sasquatch package, and especially if you have a hard top, seems like that's what it's been across almost all trim levels.
And because of that, what is the wait time? Can you even get one of these right now?
Well, you can't, as of the date that this is coming out, you cannot even order a 23 yet. I think that's going to be mid-November. The only way that you can order a Bronco is if you had an existing reservation or order that did not get fulfilled in 21 or 22. And they're doing that because they can try to catch up, but I think they have some ridiculous number of like 100,000 reservations still out there, and I don't think everyone's going to convert. It seems like some people
waiting 2 years.
Yeah,
people waiting 2 years for these things.
It's because Ford hasn't been transparent, or at least dealers haven't been transparent about how they're being allocated these. So
exactly.
Large dealers are taking massive amounts of orders, and people are ending up 200th in line at their dealer.
It's either that, right, or they're sell them out from under you. Unfortunately, I was on the Ford Reddit last night, and I saw a guy who put an order in for one, I think 9 or 10 months ago. Thing arrived, didn't even call him or anything, sold it to somebody else for $10,000 to $15,000 over sticker. I mean, it's just, you could talk about losing the license and stuff like that, but it's just bad faith dealing and tactics. It's just absolutely crazy. You know, it's one thing too if these are readily available. You know, it would still be kind of a bad business practice, but the fact of the matter is that people don't have vehicles.
I know.
You have to plan your life around ordering these things. You know, if you're into cars like he and I are, you sort of have to almost do a shotgun approach and order 5, 6, 7 cars at a time. It's crazy. It sounds so stupid. You hope that one shows up, and that when it does show up, you're not going to get screwed over. That's why, you know, I only do business with dealers that I'm loyal to and are loyal to us. I don't have time to put up with that kind of stuff, and I refuse to. I refuse to pay a dime over sticker, and I'm not going to, because it's crazy what the industry's become, and they're using predatory tactics against people.
Right.
So, all right. So we've been talking Bronco for a little while now. I guess sort of wrap this up. I guess talk about some of the likes and dislikes of the Bronco so far.
Start off aesthetically on the outside. I really like what they did with the Wildtrak trim in terms of blacking everything out, and that's why I ended up picking Shadow Black. I think you could also go with carbonized gray if you wanted to make it seem like everything worked together, from the fenders, bumpers to the hard top. But I think it just looks fairly premium for being a mass-produced off-road 4x4 vehicle.
It's a color-independent car.
It is. And as far as dislikes aesthetically, I'd say again, with Ford withholding certain options based on trim levels or packages, there's just an exposed there's exposed bolts on the right and left side.
Like rivet holes.
Yeah, it's very odd. It's painted body color, so it's really noticeable if you don't have a black vehicle, and that's normally where side steps or rock rails go, and they obviously didn't change the shape depending on the trim, but they withheld the rock rails on the Wildtrak trim, whereas it comes on the Badlands, and I think it comes on Black Diamond too. So we had to fork out an extra $700 or something as soon as we bought the vehicle to add those on, just to make it look a bit more complete.
It looked unfinished.
It does.
We thought there was something wrong with it. We were going to pick it up. I said they forget to put the side steps under the rock rails, and that was pretty ridiculous actually.
And I wish that there were also a mud flap option. I had to buy an aftermarket one, and it seems like there aren't very many options to fit the Sasquatch fenders yet. So I had to end up finding a pair on Etsy or something that fit and looked good and fit with the rock rails. So I feel like Ford should have made that an option, because it has been for the Defenders that we've had. You can just tick that box and they show up, and you don't have to do any other work yourself.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's a relatively new vehicle too, obviously. I think Jeep has their accessory game, I guess, sort of locked down, because that's, the aftermarket for Jeep is absolutely crazy. This is starting to kind of ramp up a little bit, and some companies are making them. That's another thing too, and we're lucky that this is the hardtop. We should mention it on, as far as the green Outer Banks 4-door that we had. We kind of looked into some aftermarket options to get an aftermarket hardtop for that Bronco, and you can't find them. No. And the ones that you do, I think that there's one supplier in the market. It's $5,000. So I guess that's not really necessarily a complaint, but I guess the aftermarket has not really come into full fruition with the Bronco, and I think that kind of that's a little bit of a minus. But that's nothing really against the vehicle itself. But I mean, what do you like about it? You already talked about how
major like is the suspension. I mean, I probably would have not picked this vehicle up if they didn't offer it for $22, and I heard that they were offering the HOSS 3.0 for $23. I probably would have canceled the order, or maybe even just I probably would have kept it, maybe just traded it in and put another order in right away, because to me that's really what makes the Wildtrak the Wildtrak. Having this on-road feel, and then knowing that when I'm going on a dirt road or something with ruts, I can throw it in Baja mode. It's going to be able to handle that.
It's a dual personality. I can't wait to drive it in the snow too. It's going to be a lot of fun. But it is very compliant on the road. Like we just went and got some coffee earlier, and I would be comfortable having an open lid with my coffee. It's not. You can see me. I'm not jiggling around in the seat or anything. I feel very comfortable. The seats, for being cloth, I think are pretty comfortable. They hug you nicely. They're bolstered well. I like this Raptor seats better, but personally. But To each their own, right?
Yeah, and compared to the Wrangler, again, the steering is just way better. There's no dead zone in the middle like the Wrangler where you feel like you're moving all over the place.
Or it's off kilter.
Yeah, I know.
To go straight on the freeway, you have to figure out whatever angle you're at. Yeah, it's bad. Even in the 392, it's horrible.
Exactly.
The steering, absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and then if we're thinking about dislikes, I'd say another one on the exterior is that rear bumper. It kind of seems like an afterthought, especially with the fact that you can do the modular front bumper and have that steel, and the rear is just this kind of plastic blob on the back. It has like no personality to it. It's just flat, just uninteresting, and to me it kind of cheapens the look of the car.
I think the fender flares should be painted factory, or they should offer like Jeep.
I could see them doing that eventually, but there's positives and negatives to just having the textured ones or the molded in color ones now, because they don't scratch up, and it's I don't think that they should start adding stuff like that yet if they can't even pump out the vehicles. They should pump them out as they're offered right now, and then once that they can figure out these supply chain issues, start offering that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but overall, you really like the vehicle. You're happy with it.
Yeah.
So.
And another big like is the 360 in front camera, as I mentioned before. I think it's just makes the vehicle feel a lot more tech oriented, even though it is just kind of like a simple off-road vehicle. But makes parking and everything way easier, and I feel more comfortable parking it in our garage where it's pretty tight. I guess as far as final dislike, I didn't realize this until filling up for the first time that the two-door tank is actually fairly smaller than the four-door. It might be almost a 4-gallon difference. So I have under 300-mile range every time I fill up the tank. I think it's like about 260, whereas our four-door was closer to 300, a little over 300.
Yeah, missing the two doors, you're not getting the gas mileage is not very much better, if at all. So that is sort of a drawback. I agree. All right, so I think that about does it for us on the 2022 Bronco Wildtrak. Thanks a lot for joining in. You're watching the PKF. This is Preston and Avery. So if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and more videos to come. Thanks a lot.